How to use crowdfunding to finance your small business. Module 1. Choosing your project category. The objectives of this course are to identify the 5 categories of crowdfunding projects, define the 5 categories, illustrate the different uses of each category, and also look at the action items. So there are 5 types of crowdfunding projects, and this is kind of defined more from my experience through research journals. The first type is called donation-based crowdfunding, and that's probably the one you are most familiar with just as a normal person. The second one is equity crowdfunding. The third one is peer-to-peer lending. The fourth category is called product pre-sales. And the fifth one is rewards-based. Now, to go in a little bit more in depth into each one, we're going to first start with the donation-based crowdfunding. So donation-based crowdfunding asks funders to donate money to a social cause, maybe a community project or individual causes. The donor does not receive any products or services in exchange for the donation. And some of the donation internet platforms you may be familiar with, and that includes some of the more popular ones like GoFundMe or YouCaring.com or GiveForward or First to Giving. Now, some examples of the donation-based crowdfunding that you may be familiar with, some of these include, but they're not limited to. There may be an individual who has a medical issue and who needs to raise money for a procedure. Or there may be an individual experiencing any unexpected expenses. Maybe something happened and there's an emergency and they don't have enough funds to cover it, the cost of whatever the emergency was. Another example may be simply either teachers or schools asking for donations for school supplies for the school or in individual classrooms. It can also include nonprofits asking for funding as well. And then you may see civic organizations, and they may be seeking money for an example, public artwork or maybe building repairs or anything like that to help. I can give a local example here is there to save one of a historic building in place. They're seeking funds to relocate the building from where I live. So that's another example of a civic organization asking for money and donations only, and then the funder, which is a person giving the money, doesn't receive any benefits from that. Now on the far opposite side, we're going to look at equity crowdfunding. And equity and securities crowdfunding, that allows the company to sell ownership shares of the company to the public. And that's kind of like thinking of buying stock on the New York Stock Exchange or any of these stock exchanges. And so when you buy stock, you actually buy ownership of the company. And this is the same thing here, but it's done through equity. It's called equity crowdfunding, and you're doing it through the online internet platforms as well. So this one you actually don't see very much of. I don't think it's actually even been used, probably less than 100 times, I think, from when I did my research. And it is heavily regulated still by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, since this category is considered an investment category. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but there are a lot of specific regulations and such that goes with it. So if you are interested in this equity crowdfunding for your small business, you can do that. But new crowdfunding laws, it lets companies use the internet to solicit investors, and that was something that was part of the Jobs Act. Companies were never allowed to use the internet to solicit investors, so now that they can. It does cap the amount up to $1 million over a trailing 12-month period, and it does require all transactions to occur through an SEC licensed funding portal or broker dealers. So a lot of regulation and such, just to make sure people aren't losing their money and such, and that everything is above board. So the details of equity crowdfunding here, it's ideal for companies looking to do initial public offerings, IPOs, like selling stocks. You do see a lot of the equity crowdfunding in real estate investments. Like as mentioned before, there are strict SEC rules. There are numerous internet platforms that do offer this, and you can actually, if you do some research, you can also verify that they are registered through the SEC to offer equity crowdfunding. But another caveat with this is they usually work with accredited investors only, and an accredited investor has a specific definition with the SEC. So you have to have so much money sitting in the bank, like millions of dollars sitting in the bank, or annual income of over $200,000, and you do have to verify that with either tax returns or a written statement from your accountant and such. So they do take this very seriously, and it's, as mentioned before, it's heavily regulated. Now this one you may see a little bit more of, is an option out there, but we'll go a little bit more in detail. It's called peer-to-peer lending. So it's basically what it sounds like. So you can loan money to someone else, and it allows the contributors to choose which person or business loans to contribute, the amount, and the stated interest rate. So for-profit businesses largely use peer-to-peer lending. However, you do need to know that peer-to-peer lending may be restricted in certain states. So basically, even though it's a federal law, not every individual state allows peer-to-peer lending. Now, Kiva.org is the world's largest online platform for pro-social peer-to-peer lending facilitated loans. I did put a couple citations in there as well. You can also hear of Pedal and Prosper or other peer-to-peer lending websites. So basically, that if you are interested as a small business owner, or as a lender, basically if you're a small business owner, you go into one of these platforms, you ask for, let's say, $5,000 to buy a new oven, and you're willing to pay 7% interest rate, and you need $5,000. And once you get this fulfilled, you start paying this back on, let's say, July 1st of the current year at $400 a month. And the first people who actually gave you money, the first lenders, they get paid back first. So you get paid back in order of who gives you money first. So that's something to also think of as well. So as an investor, that may be an option for you to get your money. Now, also just to let you know, the peer-to-peer lending rules they're not regulated. They're not federally insured. And that's why some states don't allow it, because they don't want people to lose money. They don't want just normal lay people to lose money, because nobody's guaranteeing these loans. And so we'll go into some of the legal things later, but also, as a small business owner, you don't want to participate in a crowdfunding campaign and take people's money and not deliver what you promised, because there are legal ramifications to that, because it's basically stealing money. So anyways, I just want to put that out there, that it may be available in your state. It may be something you may be wanting to look at and such. We're not going to talk about it in this course, because it is, like as mentioned before, it's not available everywhere and such. So we're going to go into the last two categories and talk about those a little bit more. And those are the product pre-sales. And this category of crowdfunding is one that we didn't talk about in the course, as I mentioned before. So basically, product pre-sales is what it sounds like. You're going to pre-sell the product before you get it made. So the official definition here is product pre-sales. It allows entrepreneurs to pre-order a product or service. You collect the capital to launch production, and then send the finished goods to the contributor upon completion. So this model allows entrepreneurs to fund the initial production cost to establish an inventory run, and funders will receive the final product once it's been manufactured. So here are a few examples of product pre-sales. So example 1 is Goldilocks. This was a company that used Kickstarter.com. So they needed money to cover initial manufacturing costs to produce blocks. There were kind of engineering focused blocks for girls, basically, and just ribbons and blocks and things like that. So when they went to the manufacturer, they said, okay, well, I'm just making up a number here, but they said, okay, we will make them for you. We'll make you 2,000 units of this product, but we need, the $10,000 or $15,000 to cover that cost up front. Well, Goldilocks doesn't have that much money. Let's just say they didn't have it. So what they did is they put the crowdfunding campaign out there and said, hey, we need to raise this much money. I'm going to pre-sell a kit of blocks to you for, let's say, $30. And so once they got all their money and they were able to get that initial manufacturing cost covered, they obviously sent the money to the manufacturer, the products were made, and then Goldilocks sent the individual blocks as promised to each funder. So an example number 2, and maybe a musical artist may need money to record a CD. So they're a songwriter, they've got some songs, they've practiced the vocals, but they've got to go into a recording studio and pay someone else for their time and the use of the facilities and such. And maybe even to print the CDs. In some, if they're looking for some actually CDs versus streaming music. So one way to do that is to basically pre-sell your CD in advance of the musician actually making it. Now, product pre-sales, this category is going to be ideal for small businesses that need to fund initial production costs. So it is one of the 5 categories that will be discussed in this class for your small business. Now, the 5th category is also one that we will be talking about. It's called rewards crowdfunding. So rewards-based crowdfunding, it allows donors to receive a token gift in exchange for their contributions. But rewards specifically cannot be an equity or a loan. So this category is basically, it's very similar to the product pre-sales, but it's expanded to small businesses that need money for projects, but they're not specifically offering their finished product in return for the funding. So I'll give you a couple examples here in a minute. But one thing to also note here, and from research here, is rewards is one of the most popular forms of crowdfunding. This is due to the intrinsic value of participating in crowdfunding, social reputation, and shared identity. So basically what that means is people want to give money to companies and people that they believe in because they want to participate in crowdfunding. They want to participate in something new. There's a social reputation online for doing that. And then they also feel, a shared identity, like they're one of even a couple thousand, but that's still a very limited number of people across the world that are embarking on this crowdfunding campaign with the small business owner because they're putting money up front. They want to see the business succeed because they want the product as well. So some examples of rewards-based crowdfunding. The first example I can think of here is, say you're a home-based restaurant, say you make cinnamon rolls out of your home every week, and your business is booming. And you've just been selling locally to your friends, maybe the farmer's market, a couple little businesses. But you also notice that the food truck business is just booming in your town. And you think, well, maybe if I had a food truck, I could go to where the lunch crowd is. I can go to these office parks and sell cinnamon rolls and such, or in the mornings before they get to work. So you need, say, $15,000 to buy a food truck. Well, you're actually part of the product pre-sales versus the rewards is you're not going to, once you get the food truck, you're not going to give the food truck back to the funders. So in this case, you need to think of rewards that you can give your funders. So you can do, we'll go into all of this later too, but you can do t-shirts for your business. You can maybe send them a coupon to redeem a cinnamon roll in the future. If you're making this from your home, you can go ahead and start selling some more cinnamon rolls and getting new customers as well to help raise money specifically for the food truck. Another example is, say you've got the best idea for a new smartphone application, but you have to pay somebody to actually write the code, right? You don't know how to do the computer code, but you've got this great idea, you've got it mapped out, you've got your pictures, you know what it can do, this functionality. So you need to pay somebody. So you can actually use rewards-based to pay somebody for that service. Perhaps you already have it all done. Another third example here is, but now you need to spend some money marketing the app, right? It does cost money to do social media marketing, just to get some online marketing written up on different magazines, things like that. It could cost money as well. And you can raise money for a marketing campaign. So the rewards-based crowdfunding is ideal for small businesses that want funds or money to create products, but not offer it as a reward. So as mentioned before, this can be research and development costs. So we are now at the end. We went through all 5 categories of crowdfunding, and so your action item for this module here is to choose the crowdfunding category that best fits your proposed project for your business. So it's either going to be rewards-based or product pre-sales. So if you need money to upfront for production costs or manufacturing costs, you're going to choose product pre-sales. If you need to raise money for any other type of service or physical good there, or a food truck, you're going to choose rewards-based. And I just want you to go ahead out and list out a few reasons why you chose that specific category based on what we talked about. And this is just to make sure that you clarify your understanding of what the different categories are. So thank you for joining me. This is the end of Module 1, choosing your project category.